Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. So the first picture photo I think we should discuss is ventilation painting completed in quarantine, water-soluble graphite on paper, 50 centimeters by 300 centimeters. So that's 3 meters. If you're American, that's about 3 yards. It's roughly more or less monochromatic. It's like a warm black and white. In the top left-hand corner, it looks like, I don't know, like some kind of seat, some kind of like love seat, I guess. There seems to be a purse, I guess.
It's actually the bed.
Oh, okay. So the bed. So there's a bed. There seems to be a purse or something on the floor. The floor is all tile, some kind of nice granite or something. And from the wall in the back, leading right down to the photographer, so it looks like it's about 3 meters long. Even actually, it looks longer than that. Is this recurring print of this? It looks like a tile almost. And I think you'll describe what it is. It's a very, it's a documentative photograph, beautifully composed in its own way. Actually, this is the image that caught my attention. I thought, oh, wait a second, what is this about? And then it was a photo, I think, of you on Facebook saying something about quarantine. I was like, oh, wait, what is this? And then I had to look again. And so please, what's the story behind this photo?
Bear with me as well, because I think our connection's a bit unstable. Also from my end, the internet here has been hit or miss. And when you're stuck in a room for 3 weeks and your connection to the world is through the internet, you wonder why the whole floor is not in mutiny. I'll talk more about quarantine later, but about this image that you're describing so well, it's actually part of a series of about 50 paintings I'm doing. I live in Shamshui-po. To give a little background information, I'm an American artist based in Hong Kong, immigrating here. I've been in Asia 17 years, in Hong Kong for total 6.5. And I live in a Tong Lao. It's a 9th floor walk-up, very traditional architecture. And inside, the walls don't actually reach the ceiling of the bedrooms, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Instead of the walls reaching the ceiling, you have these kind of iron lattices that you see in straight Chinese architecture and in, kind of lower middle class housing of the era, mid 20th century. And that's what this particular image is of. I literally, for every single door and window and grate in my house that lets air in and lets air circulate, I press against it, I create an imprint, and then I trace that pattern with water-soluble graphite, which is basically like pencil dust, kind of. Mm-hmm. So I take this dust, and it's like pencil dust, and I mix it with water, and then I use it like paint. I'm trained as a painter. I work as artist in residence with an international school here, and so I tend to have the space to do large-scale work like this. This is my first time working in such a small space with a big piece. Painting it on the floor was pretty difficult, as you can imagine. But, if you set yourself up to do something, you just do it, right? You don't kind of give yourself a choice. Because I knew I was going to have a couple weeks here, and I had this series I started. Basically, like you, I was really impressed with your 6.5 years project. Similarly, a lot of my work incorporates times. So for this particular series, it's actually 50 paintings that create an installation called the ventilation paintings. And I started them around February, March last year, which was a long time ago. But it was basically the beginning of the pandemic. And I'm finishing it now in quarantine. And so for me, that's an arc of time. It's a little under a year. And it has real meaning for me. And all these, images in the series, which look like traditional Kowloon windows, etc., they are basically tracing the negative space where air comes in, where the building breathes. Because when the pandemic started, I was thinking a lot of Wuhan. I lived in northern China for 4 years in Beijing, and the winters there are really gray and polluted and kind of oppressive. And you saw this drone footage of Wuhan at the beginning of the epidemic. I thought, I know what that air tastes like. It tastes like graphite. It tastes like metal. It looks like that. It feels like that. And that's why I decided to use that kind of, honestly, not terribly interesting color, gray, in this work. But actually, partly because I'm in quarantine here and I don't have access to this special material, I'm being really stingy with it. So it forces me to use it in more creative ways. And so the photo, as you see it, it's actually stretched along the floor. I wanted to show how the pattern changes with the perspective of it, and also the edge of the bed. So you see this like purple kind of cheap bed skirt on the hotel room bed, and then the artwork kind of drapes along the floor. And it gives this dramatic sense of impact because it's so long in this really confined space.
Okay, so many things to say. I love it. Okay, so
It's a lot.
no, it's perfect. First of all, I love that I'm speaking to somebody who's clearly immersed herself in art. And so how you talk about your work, how you talk about thinking about your work, and how you talk about how you got to finding a way to express yourself visually, for me is always, like when I asked you to join me on the podcast, I said, it's going to be so fun to just talk shop. From what you said, you're essentially, what you've done is you've captured the imprint of the building breathing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. My first degree was in poetry, in creative writing and poetry. And
wow,
it's all about the breath and about the voice, but the breath was so important. And in a way that you've visually captured this it's quite beautiful.
There are a couple other elements to that aspect of breathing. One was that at the time when I started the series, I was thinking a lot about the people on ventilators in China and also in Italy at the time. As that was beginning, I was thinking they're breathing. They're struggling to breathe. I was thinking of the word ventilation and what that means in different contexts. And also the inherent fragility of architecture in Hong Kong and other places where architecture is so transient. So the building I'm in was due to be torn down next year. They've stopped it for now, but in a couple of years it'll be torn down. So in a sense, I'm documenting this place that's going to be gone. And all that will be left of it is these artworks that I've made of it, which were physical contact between the metal, my hand, my skin, and the paper.
Mm-hmm. Also, for as a visual cue, it almost looks like these reflected human forms standing, and it looks like people essentially holding up the wall or the floor. I don't know if that's just what I saw as a visual connection.
That really makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the repetitive pattern of it. And I've been told actually that this is quite a form that was used in British colonies in the mid-20th century, from Hong Kong to Cyprus even. In Cyprus, you have the exact same design, used in the same way. Yeah. And you almost never see it anymore because it's all been torn down for most places. But I live in a time capsule, essentially, in Sham Shui Po.
Okay, so for people who don't know, now, okay, so this is one thing, because we've never met, and this is our first time meeting and talking. You don't actually live in Sham Shui Po, or you do live in Sham Shui Po?
I do live in Sham Shui Po. Okay. Yeah, I've lived there for 4 years.
Okay. I've used this phrase on the podcast before when I describe being in the thick of it. In Israel, you call the juice of the garbage. It's like, if you have a garbage bag, the juice of the garbage is really is in the middle and the thick of it. And I consider Sham Shui Po to be the more interesting juice of Hong Kong's garbage. Like, it's really full on.
It really is. And I chose to live there deliberately for a number of reasons. Partly because after moving back to Hong Kong, I'd lived in Beijing for 4.5 years. I wanted to be somewhere really Chinese, really kind of what seemed like at the heart of Cantonese culture. And I currently live on that fabric street where I'm not romantic about fabrics, but the energy and the activity there during the daytime, you've got fabric stalls lining the street. At nighttime, it's basically gamblers everywhere on the street, since the pandemic especially. It's got life 24/7, and yet it's much quieter than where I'm staying in Hong Kong Island, So it's got so much richness to it and so much depth. Yeah.
You did the work in your apartment, but you are in quarantine in Causeway Bay?
Yeah, so you're wondering, how did you get here, right? Good question. So what I did is, the reason I'm in quarantine, which will come up a little bit later with the final image, is I went to Turkey. I went to Istanbul for about a week, a little over a week, to see a collaborator there, someone pretty special. And I took the artwork with me. So I had about 25 paintings, 20 pieces of paper that already had the impressions on them, and the art supplies. I have this huge tube. It's about 1 meter tall, maybe by 20 centimeters wide. And that's what I bring all of my artwork in when I have a show overseas or taking it. You can check it pretty easily into luggage, and I brought it with me. It gets a lot of looks from airport security. They're like, what is in there? Is it a gun?
Yeah. Okay. Now I get it. So basically the floor is in the hotel where you're at the moment in quarantine?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's move on to the next image and just see what pops over from there.
So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.